Welcome to the Building Your Career podcast. I'm your host, Dom Taujanskas, and join us as we explore the world of construction. Each episode, we welcome a guest that shares career highlights and career advice, and hopefully inspires the next generation of construction professionals. Welcome to another edition of the Building Your Career podcast. Today, I have got Matthew Booth, who's a senior project manager over at McLaren. Very excited to have him on the podcast. Is working on quite an incredible scheme. So, Matthew, I'll give the floor to you, as I always do, and just ask the first question. Could you tell us a little bit more about your current job role, the company that you work for, and also the projects that you're involved in as well?
Yep. Yeah, not a problem. So, like you say, Matthew, I'm senior project manager for McLaren. Currently down at the doing a data center. It's like I say, it's a really, really incredible, interesting scheme. It's very complex. A lot of people just badge them as like basically a shed with lots of pipes and wires in. But to be honest with you, there's a lot of thought and process and interfaces and everything which need to go into it. They're extremely large projects. Obviously, this one's around sort of the 130 million mark for us to deliver. And with that comes a very large team to manage, and a lot of supply chain and coordination what goes into it. So, a very interesting project. Keeps us all thinking and on our toes, which is always good. And they'll say, obviously, working for McLaren, delivering the projects, obviously being a very good company to be working for. They're very supportive, give us enough support and resource to deliver projects we need and ensuring we're doing it correctly to the right quality standards, making sure we're doing it safely, and ensuring that obviously we're delivering for our client a good product at the end of the day, really. Because it is all about customer satisfaction and getting the project delivered through so everyone's happy with it. And we all come out of it all happy at the end of it. So they are very, I say, just with their supportive side of things, they're also really good with the L&D side of things as well. So they're always trying to invest in, they invest a lot of time and money into the training and support, especially for myself. Done a lot of courses with them, management courses and training, and they're always looking at what we need to be doing and developing just to basically so we can all improve and deliver better in our jobs. And I must say, some of the courses we do go on, sort of like we done like this management training one, but it was called Insights. We all learn about all our different personality types, which was you answer 20 questions and then you got basically an essay written out for you, generated from the system, and it basically describes your personality down to a T. So it was really scary stuff, to be honest with you.
I wouldn't want to take that test.
But that was really insightful, to be honest with you, understanding who you are and how you react to different things and how to manage different people. That sort of thing really helps with my obviously professional career, but also in your personal life as well, because then you start seeing different people, and when you get talking to them, you think, oh, actually, I reckon you're this sort of personality trait, so you can respond differently to this one. So yeah, it was really, it's really good, and it's really good that they do pioneer these schemes and just trying to keep pushing and developing us as a team and as individuals just to grow and achieve more, really. So
perfect. Well, that's testament just to demonstrate to people as well that there are those companies out there that do invest in their people, that do provide excellent training and development in place from kind of day one, really, and people who really do treat people as people and not just a number. So, don't think that every company out there is just not going to give you the time of day. Matthew himself is saying that McLaren have been there and done that and given him, all that training in place as well. But one thing that I'm trying to do on the podcast as well is just kind of break down some of the terminology as well. So I've had a few people message in to kind of explain what the word or what the phrase supply chain means. So could you just give us a little bit of a breakdown of exactly what you mean by the term supply chain?
Okay, yeah. So our supply chain. So obviously we're a principal contractor. So our customers and clients come to us, ask us to build them a data center. So basically from that point onwards, we organise what we refer to as our supply chain. So that would be all our subcontractors. And basically we break the project down into lots of different elements. So our subcontractors be like the guys putting up the steel work, the guys doing the groundworks, the guys doing the cladding, On say on a project this size, we might have somewhere circa to 60 different contractors on site. And so when we refer to our supply chain, it is down to for companies we employ to actually physically carry out the works on site. And we essentially manage, well, my role and my team is to essentially manage them on site and manage the quality for sequencing in the program and for delivery of all our subcontractors. But when we do talk about supply chain as well, we do talk a lot of it, especially recently after COVID and issues with the supply chain. We now consider it more broader as well. Before it used to be just our subcontractors, but now we're talking about materials as well,
Hmm.
and even considering about where the raw materials and stuff are actually manufactured and produced. So it's basically what, for example, for a piece of steel is where is that steel being mined from, essentially, where they're going to be fabricated, where it's going to be obviously put together, where it's going to be painted, and everything which that process takes, which normally our contractors will take care of, but it's something
Hmm.
we're much more interested in because there's becoming more and more challenges in terms of leading times and availability of everything. So
Okay.
it's good to understand basically from where it starts to how it gets onto site and how it gets put up into the building.
Okay, brilliant. So, well, thank you
Yeah.
for very much for breaking that down. I think that'd be really helpful to a lot of our listeners as well. But if we could kind of turn back the hands of time and go back to the very start of your career, then what inspired you to pursue a career in construction, and what's been your process so far to get to where you are?
Okay. Yeah. So when I first started, it was back in I left school back in 2008.
Hmm.
I was very much one of the in my class year out of norm because I was very reluctant to go to university. I wanted to, I wanted to leave school. I wanted to get a job. I think I was one of three people who did that in my class. So, um, but essentially, originally I wanted to be. I've always found buildings really fascinating and interested in how things are all put together. Originally I wanted to go do architecture.
Hmm.
I looked into that and I saw it was about a 7 year learning and university and everything else. And I thought, you know what, I just want to get into the thick of it. So, um, essentially, well, in my local town where I was from, there was one of the construction companies there. They ran a management trainee scheme, which I was lucky
Hmm.
enough to get on board with. Which, to be honest with you, is probably one of the best things to ever happen to me and for me and for my career. Um, so when I was there, obviously joined when I was 18, and then basically for trainee scheme, they had been running for many years, so they were very au fait with it, and they was very well set up and very well run.
Hmm.
I spent it was about a 5 year training plan.
And who
So
was that company out of interest?
that was Barnes Construction.
Okay, yeah, yeah,
They're based
brilliant.
out of Ipswich,
Hmm.
and basically we spent a year in each department. So I went, did rotations in commercial, being on site in design, and
Hmm.
then at the end of that, I got to pick which one I liked the best, and then spent the next couple of years working your way through to become basically an assistant. So I went into the training fully expecting I wanted to be a QS and be a commercial career, but then once I went out onto site, then it's completely flipped it on its head, and I thought, you know what, I love this, and then stuck with that. And for me, I think that was just such a good and powerful thing about the training program as well was that when you're 18, you think you know what you want, but to be honest with you, you probably don't until you try it. You've got all these ideas and aspirations of what you think the role is, but I
Hmm.
think the flexibility to try each area and then to be able to pick at the end, I think that was absolutely fantastic. And also, it just gave me a great big breadth of knowledge of each of the disciplines and what they do. Because even though we only do it for a year, you just scrape the surface of it, but you do understand the needs and what they do and where they all fit into part of the big jigsaw puzzle, essentially,
Hmm.
which was really good.
Brilliant.
Um,
Um, and then on from Barnes, what was the kind of the next steps after that?
Yeah. So just while I was at Barnes, I did a day release as well, doing my degree
Okay,
alongside of it. So
nice. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that was really good. Even though I said I didn't want to do university, ended back up there anyway. But but doing that alongside the work experience was really good. Then Then after Barnes, I moved over to a company called Interserve Construction. I think they're now shut for construction arm and rebadged as Tilby Douglas. So I went there, basically went there as a site manager out of their Cambridge office, which was again really interesting. They were doing lots of different more projects. So at Barnes, I did a lot of like leisure, sport, schools, education. And then when I was in Serve, did a lot more NHS and hospital work. And to me, I think that's a good. I found that really good to have that breadth of experience on all the different sectors as well, just to understand your knowledge. Because there's always each sector, and people do specialise in different areas, but they all try to do things their own particular way. And having that understanding of the different clients and different objectives and everything else, but having that experience from across all the different sectors, you can always pick and choose all the best bits and turn something into your own. So I was there in Serve for a little while until they shut the office. Then I went to again another builder, RG Carter, where I did more the project management side of things. And that was a lot much more bigger projects as well. And then from then it was just before COVID. I felt that my on-site experience and everything was very well, got a very well-rounded experience of that. And I felt I don't know if I was gapping my experience, maybe with all the like the pre-construction side of things, which I never really touched upon. So now I spent a few years going into the pre-con side of things and doing the programming as well, which to me was again seeing for front end and understanding how the business focuses on the pre-construction side, what jobs it wants to target, which projects it wants to win, and just setting that whole bridge of strategy from the outset and the process of in terms of even getting on to a tender list to try and win work, and then seeing that through to actually how we win it and the decisions are made in order to win it. That answered a lot of questions and frustrations I had on site. But to me, that was such a valuable 3 years to understand that whole process to how we get from A to B and then delivery on site. So that's pretty much then how I ended up where I am now. So I then moved to McLaren. I was still in the pre-construction side of things with McLaren. And then we worked on the PCSA for this data center. So that was back in about 12 months ago. I won the tender with the pre-construction team. Did the PCSA, which is the pre-construction services agreement, which is where we support the client and the customer while we're working through the pricing element of the design, give them support and can place early orders to facilitate their program, and just basically to have a very collaborative approach for project delivery. And then from that, my project director convinced me to go back out onto site to see it through. So, which I'm very grateful for, to be honest with you, because we're sort of partway through the project now, going extremely well, getting the steel frame up, and for me, it's really rewarding to look out the window from the site office and actually see the all your efforts sort of come to light, and for the delivery side of things, I think that'd be quite rewarding. I know construction, that side of things, it is, because there is something physical at the end of it. Which I know some other tasks and other different jobs, you do something and then it sort of gets filed away and then forgotten about. But what we do in building, it's built to last at the end of the day. So
yeah, definitely. And you've seen that right through from the very, very beginning stages, and you're kind of involved in that all the way through. So that's excellent. And, definitely something that a lot of people don't realize that they can get involved in is right through from the early stages, right through to the completion as well. But are you a job seeker, tired of endlessly scrolling through job boards with no success? Has your job search hit a dead end? Well, we're here to tell you there's another way. Here at Quest Personnel, we offer a variety of free resources to help job seekers just like you. Our team of expert recruiters is here to help you through every step of the job search process, from CV writing to interview techniques. But that's not all. We also offer exclusive access to workshops, networking events, and other job roles that you simply won't find anywhere else. So what are you waiting for? Get in touch now on our website, questpersonnel.co.uk. But I mean, I suppose knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to your younger self when you first started out a career in construction? I mean, it doesn't have to be one piece of advice; it can be a couple. But you touched on quite a few interesting points there at the kind of the beginning of your career. So, in your opinion, what advice would you give to your younger self?
So the biggest thing for me would be for me, I'm very ambitious, a very ambitious person. Always got quite a big drive. Always wanting to do more. So I think looking back, I would say to myself, don't be too quick. Um, don't be in too much of a hurry to progress. And don't be in too much of a hurry to try and run before you can walk.
Mm-hmm.
Because say when I was midway through my training, there was other companies which maybe if I joined as an apprentice, I would have been maybe a bit more higher up in my level than I would have been if I was
Mm-hmm.
at the same level. But looking back now and the experience I got from doing what I did, I think was invaluable, to be honest with you. So instead of just trying to rush and shoot your career off in one direction, by taking the time and to broaden your knowledge towards later on in your career, I think that has really, really helped me and has really stood me out against other people as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that is very, from my experiences and from what I've been exposed to, I think is potentially quite rare in different candidates. So, my advice would be to my younger self was it all works out in the end and you'll get there eventually. But just take your time and learn as much and as much as possible you can. And so if you actually have a real bit big bit of advice I would as well is just don't get focused on your one discipline.
Yep.
Understand what other people are doing and
Yep.
ask lots of questions. Don't be scared to offer ideas as well, because when I started at Barnes, they were very supportive of me on that side of things, and some ideas I came out with good, and I had a supportive site manager who goes, right, let's do it. But then I also had some terrible ideas as well, and he would say, have you thought about that? And you go, oh, actually. But it's no, it's that was that was really helped me with much more rounded knowledge and experience.
Uh,
Sorry, just smaller projects as well. I don't get hung up on the values and the bigger jobs, and they're
yep.
all quite glamorous. But when I did some smaller projects, you've got a lot smaller team. You end up doing a lot yourself, and that basically bigger jobs you just have more of it really. So for stuff you learn and you have to do yourself because you have the time, it just broadens your perspective of what your role is and how it all fits together.
And it was some really interesting advice there, actually, because a few people on the podcast have said about getting all-round experience at the beginning and having an inquisitive mindset and inquisitive nature. But you just mentioned there, suggest ideas. No one's actually said that in a podcast before, but yeah, you are completely right. Have that confidence to suggest ideas. And as you say, not all of them are going to land, not all of them are going to be viable, but at least you're kind of thinking about strategies, different ways of doing things. So that is an excellent bit of advice there, actually. Really, really good. So in your opinion then, what are the kind of the different career paths available in the construction industry for someone just starting out and wanting to get involved in construction? Is there any particular courses that you would recommend, any particular groups to sign up to, or any paths that are either the traditional university route or kind of maybe on the trades and labour route?
So obviously just speaking from experience then, so at McLaren and on this project actually we're taking on 2 management trainees.
Mm-hmm.
Again, probably following the very same route as I did. So they were doing so they basically would just do day release at university, and then we'll just rotate them around each department. Because from a personal level, I found that very useful. So hopefully we're just going to try and do that. Personally, I think that's a really good way into construction.
Yep.
In terms of showing you acumen into construction and bits and pieces. For me, I was all very much when I was at school and the course I did, I was all about I did maths and physics and stuff. But also like the design technology side of things. And I suppose it's just making sure, just basically exposing yourself to basically how things put together, and basically understanding. For me, I'm a very practical person, so
Hmm.
but I think just take advantage of all the apprenticeships which are out there. I think there's so many out there now that I think learning with the experience of work and the education alongside of things, I just think that for me, I think that'll be the best way to get into it, because you come out at the end of it and you've got your qualifications, you've got your degree or your MVQs now. We do a lot of MVQs, and a lot of them are paired up with your chartership as well. So you
Hmm.
come out with qualification and you get your CIOB chartership or your RICS chartership, which again is really good. Which, you by the end of your education, you could have your qualification, you could be chartered, and then you could have maybe 4 or 5 years of work experience under your belt as well, which I think is invaluable, to be honest with you. It's come a lot more streamlined now from when I started. You do your degree, and then you go to work, and then you do your chartership, and then 10 years down the line, you'll be there. So
Yeah. I mean, that's previous guest of mine, Javad Khalil, was a big advocate of that kind of day release scheme as well. So could you just give our listeners a little bit of a flavour of what that was like for you, kind of doing a day release scheme and how that kind of worked?
yep. So essentially, I did my normal sort of working week, but then it was 1 day a week. It'll be day released to a university. So when I did it, and I think how we do it, we'll pick like a local college or university, and then you spend basically the day there doing that. And then we also do educational days. So if you've got a lot of essays and coursework to do, we'll give you a bit of time to go away and just get them worked through and done.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, it just follows the general of the university's term times. So obviously, some holidays you'll just be at work full time.
Okay.
Um, but essentially, you go away, and then I did my degree. So for mine, I did like a foundation degree, which was 2 years, then did my honours degree, which was top up. But we do day release for the MVQ level 7s, and we also do it for degree courses as well. And then you just do set modules at a time, and then you do your coursework for it. And honestly, and then the good thing as well with that is you go learn about it in a classroom, but then you can see it out in action as well.
Yeah.
And it's that connection between the two, which is really useful. And then for me, I found towards the end, because mine was 5 year course in total. By doing the 5th year, when I was doing my dissertation, I found it a lot easier, because at the beginning you're sort of learning and then you go and see it, but then towards the end it's more of actually you're just writing down what you already know,
Mm-hmm.
which and then obviously just doing the research and bits and pieces to go alongside it. So
Yeah.
from that side of things, it's just so joined up, and I think it's just
Yeah.
a great way to learn and educate yourself, and at the end of it have a bit of confidence and be more comfortable in the workplace, and how businesses and everything is all set up and how it's actually done out on the ground, sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the polar opposite to what I was used to. It was 5 years of studying architecture at university, then
Yeah.
thrown at the deep end with no idea how to operate in a business or the actual real life working environment. So I was thrown in at the deep end, and I was shocked. Trying to have to get into the office at like 8 o'clock in the morning just wasn't part of what I was used to. So it's great to have that kind of practical experience as you're going along, learning exactly how it's done, and then also kind of coordinating that back to what you're learning as well. So yeah, I think it's an awesome way to study. So just leading on to a kind of our final question then, with the CIOB publishing a report recently to say we need 250,000 more people in the UK construction industry by 2027 just for it to sustain itself. Obviously, there's a big lack of the younger generation coming through. So what can companies, and you can make this particular to McLaren as well, the good work that they have done, and maybe some examples, but what can companies do as a whole to kind of, first of all, attract, nurture, and also train the younger generation to pursue a career in construction?
Yeah. So So my thoughts are just obviously to try and attract more young, because I think a lot of these days, I think obviously technology is a big draw to
Hmm.
the younger generation as they come through. So I think in these days construction isn't it's changed a lot with the 3D modeling and the digital age of construction. And I think it's really just maybe advertising that a lot more. I think there's a very lot of good technical roles and professional roles in construction. I think I think obviously back in the day, you've had a very bad uh, what do you call it?
Yeah.
A bad
Rep.
stereotype for
Yeah.
say working on a building site.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I would say it's obviously 100% not like that as what people think it is. But I think just with investment in technology and improving things and innovation within the industry, which I think McLaren are doing that in bucket loads. We've got a full new digital team. It's solely dedicated to improving our digital construction methods with the Revit models and the Navisworks. And I think if we all keep investing in them sort of things, I think that's what a lot of people are interested in as well. And I think that'll draw people back into the roles. I think as well these good training schemes that we all do, I think they just need to be more heavily advertised and probably more targeted. We do a lot of engagement within schools and bits and pieces as part of our local community engagements for projects. Tell
Hmm.
them about us, and obviously we advertising a lot of apprenticeships and roles and everything. I think it's just reaching out to people that and advertising really what construction is all about.
Yeah.
Because I think there might be, yeah, it's not for most. I don't think it's perceived as the most glamorous of roles, but there is lots of good opportunity. There's lots of really good people, real intelligent and expert people as well. And it's such an interesting and never one project is the same.
And that's what we're trying to do with this podcast, is just get the word out there,
Yeah.
teach people about the different career paths available, and get them excited as construction as a career path. So, Matthew, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. It's been really insightful seeing your background and experience and learning your kind of journey and the project that you're on at the moment. So thank you so much for being a guest.
Yes, brilliant. No, thanks for having us, Dom. It's been really good.
Brilliant. Joining us on the Building Your Career podcast. We hope you enjoyed hearing from our guest and learning about the different career paths available. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe so we can reach even more listeners. And if anyone wants any free CV advice or simply wants to know the options available to them, don't hesitate to get in touch.